tó nílé ni lóko ni lọ́nà àbí lẹ́yìn odi ẹ̀yin tẹ́ bá ń gbọ́ wa jákèjádò orílẹ̀-èdè àgbáyé, we bid you welcome to a fresh episode today with your friends, your brother, and your servants in the knowledge of the universe and nature, Baba Yoba. Today, we will be talking about something quite unique. And this is something that has been causing a lot of discrepancies and also a sort of discrimination amongst us all who are practitioners of African spirituality. And I really wanted to set the record straight because this is a home or a house we are building. And we are building it so that it can be on a solid rock so that we don't just do a sort of rigmarole. And at the end of the day, it doesn't last long. We see a lot of folks who are coming into African spirituality with hate, with vehement hate, substantial hate that you can feel. And there's such a thing as called black supremacy amongst us. Black supremacy, as defined by me, is a situation whereby folks who are black in color, who have this melanin prevailing in their skin, feels that it is their sole right only when it comes to African spirituality. And so when they see folks who are quite fair in complexion, practicing the same African spirituality, which they are ashamed of, they feel indignant and very angry. They feel vindictive and they go so ballistic against them. I brought a certain guest to the show today to come and speak about his experience and also give us some enlightenment. Even though when I pasted this on my Instagram page, a lot of people have been going up and down. No, it can't be. Why are you bringing him and all of those? But I want you to hold your peace and hear from this man. I have begged that we make English language our language of communication today so that everyone who do not understand can also have an understanding of what we are doing today. And so we'll be speaking English, not because our guest does not understand Yoruba. In fact, he understands and can speak Yoruba than most of us, most of the people who are watching today. With the joy in my heart, I will be bringing in the person of Olumi Osha. His name is actually, as a matter of fact, Chief Aikulola, Oloyi Aikulola. If you are there, sir, please, you're welcome to the program today.
Thank you. Good afternoon and good evening. I believe it's about 4 p.m. your side. So.
Right. Yeah. It's actually 4 p.m. my side, and
Okay,
it's
great.
around 10 your side there. You're welcome to the program today, sir. I want you to be the one who introduce yourself to people in general. Who is Olumi Osha? Let the people know you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on your program. I've been an avid follower for some time. That I've seen your videos on YouTube as well as Instagram, and I think a lot of us appreciate the work that you do. So it's hopeful. So myself, my birth name is Nathan Lugo. I live here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in the southern part of the United States. I'm a Babalawo, Olobatala, Elegun, Awo myself, I was born and raised in New York and elsewhere. My family is actually from Puerto Rico, which is an island in the Caribbean, where I've also lived. I went to university there as well for some time. So what else can I say? Been in the culture for most of my life, actually. Been in the culture most of my life since about 10 years old. So since I was a pre-adolescent, I've been a follower of Orisha tradition.
All right. Sorry, I didn't get you there. I actually lost my hearing aid.
Okay, no worries.
All right. So you have actually introduced yourself in a nutshell. There are a lot of people who also see you as a Westerner in this part of Africa, or most of my brothers who are black in complexion, who are also Africans, they see you as either a European or a Westerner. And there's this particular agitation against the Westerner by those who practice African spirituality because coming from the post-colonial era and children of the ancestors who were taking slavery to the West, to UK and the rest of them, feel indignant seeing someone of your complexion practicing African spirituality. And I want you to reiterate again to them that you are not a Westerner.
Hmm. Well, so it depends on what we use to define Westerner. So I was actually born in the United States, so there's no way to avoid that.
All right.
At the same time, I was raised in a Puerto Rican household, so I learned Spanish and English at the same time ever since I was born, and also my culture is Caribbean. So the food I
Okay.
was brought up with, the music, even the type of Spanish we speak is not the one from Europe. It's the one from the Caribbean, from Puerto Rico. So at the same time, I want to establish that people's sentiment is not unfounded. People's suspicion is very well grounded in history. And I wouldn't go completely against people's bias, but I would couple it with compassion and intelligence, with knowledge. A lot of people work from a place of ignorance, they just don't know. And our human brain tries to simplify things. So, what we look at, the first instance, is what our brain tries to interpret as that thing. But if anyone has spent any considerable amount of time in Latin America, they will know that places like Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican Republic, even English speaking countries such as Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, even Haiti, we're a great mix of different peoples, racially mixed. If you go to Brazil, it's one of the most racially mixed places you're going to see. Meanwhile, African descendants outside of the continent, African descendants are more populous in Brazil than anywhere else in the world,
Mm.
according to statistics. So I make no claims about something that I'm not. I tell people I'm Puerto Rican, and within my own genetic makeup, I have European, I have Native American, which were the Taino Indians, known as Tainos, as well as African. And in Puerto Rico, we have plenty of African heritage. It's part of our culture. It's in the food that we eat, it's in the Spanish that we speak. African languages have influenced our Puerto Rican Spanish, and not only in Puerto Rico, also in Cuba, Dominican Republic, places like Venezuela, which is in South America. So I simply ask that people educate themselves, and that's what we're doing. Your work, my work, we try to simply educate people so that they can at least make wholesome decisions from a place of knowledge, not from ignorance.
All
And I
right.
think this is also very useful for our Yoruba people in West Africa that have not spent time elsewhere. Sometimes in Yoruba language, things are simplified. They become more diverse on the continent, but when it refers to people from the outside, Lati Lokiri, we just simply say Awon Yimbo. Or
Mm.
maybe we'll say Awon Yimbo Funfun, Awon Yimbo Dudu, or Awon Lawo Dudu. So
Mm.
but it's more simplified. It's quite diverse here in the West.
All right. Thank you very much, Oluwin Osha. And we are talking today basically on dealing with Black supremacy. And part of dealing with Black supremacy is what we are talking about today, because I know a lot of folks who do what I do as a Babalawo who do not have the kind of oratory skill that I have to simplify things to people, but they feel indignant when someone like you is the one whom people like us run to for divination, for Ifa consultation. They feel like they are useless. They feel like, okay, those white folks, those people that are having albinism in their complexion are coming. They came first to take away our ancestors. They also came to take away our knowledge. And now people are going back to them for divination. How can a black person go to a white person for Ifa divination and all that? There are a lot of inferiority complexes. There are a lot of black supremacy. There are a lot of this indignation amongst our people. You as a person will be taking a very good brunt of that particular disc that are being thrown around, even though some of us have come to reality. There are people who feel like everything that comes from abroad comes from above. They would rather go to a Brazilian Babalawo to go and do divination. And when the thing did not work well for the Brazilian Babalawo, the Brazilian Babalawo now comes to the inbox of someone like Los Cos and tell us that, okay, take these dollars of money. Can you tell us the secret of this and all that? But our people still we prefer to go that. And people who are holding the custody of this sacred secret of the universe, like myself here, feel indignant when they see someone like you. And I know there are lots of them in the country where you stay. How do you cope with this black supremacy mentality and this indignation and this hate against you as a practitioner of Ifa?
So I tell people that, first of all, I'm never going to stop doing what I do because I do it out of personal conviction, personal passion. Since I was an adolescent, I pretty much decided and chose my path. And so even if I had chosen a more Latin American approach to practice of Orisha, each community has its own challenges. So I knew I would face certain challenges within this tradition. And as we grow older, we begin to, develop a thick skin and also find what works. So you won't find me in every space. I don't go everywhere. I usually stay home. I have plenty of friends and associates that I enjoy my life with, my own students, my own elders. My elders are in Yoruba land. So I want to first of all give them praise and honor to my Olu, the Agbang Bawo of Oshogbo, as well as my other Olorisha, my Baba Elegun in Oshogbo. I have my folks that I deal with within the culture. And I'm blessed to have people that embrace me for who I am. And I also provide that same gesture towards them. Also, I want to establish that Orisha faith and lifestyle is already global. And it's been like that for at least 100, maybe 200 years, for however long Yoruba traditions were established outside of Yoruba land in the diaspora. So that's not going to change anytime soon. Also want to establish that the source is always going to be Ile Ife, Ile Ududua,
Yeah.
Ile Karo Jire.
Yeah.
Yoruba land will always be the source. And so that is our reference point. Now, in the conversation, by reiterating these things, educating people, it'll help people to also navigate all of these challenges within the conversation to help the situation in terms of racial inequality, injustice. And I feel strongly that part of the tools to combat that is African spirituality. Because in colonialism, we've seen it throughout. One of the best ways to dominate a people is to demonize their deities, the deities that look like them, the deities that were born from their culture. And so when those of us, by default, if you practice an African traditional religion of any category, any kind, you engage in that conversation. It's not perfect. And also, personally, for me, I chose West African practice of Orisha because I saw some inequality within Spanish-speaking or Portuguese-speaking groups of Orisha practitioners. So one would think that's such an oxymoron. It's so odd. How bizarre is that? But it exists. There are communities of Orisha devotees that have bias against African peoples, even though they themselves have African ancestry, however light, however dark they are. And that's another thing I want to clarify. You'd be surprised how many dark-skinned African descendants in Latin America have animosity towards West African practice of Orisha. Any of us that practice West African Orisha, whether dark skin, brown, light skin, doesn't matter. Complete animosity towards West African practice of Orisha, as well as various misconceptions. So we have to deal with those kinds of things. It's not just from one side of the spectrum. It's from a broad range of, colors of complexion, if you will. And I've taken on the challenge because I knew that I would practice this tradition from the source. I had the desire within me to know what it is that we're singing for the Orisha, to know the origin of what it is that we practice throughout the world. It may have begun, the diaspora may have begun in Brazil, Cuba, Trinidad, Tobago, and other parts of Latin America since the time of the transatlantic slave trade, but it spread. And so we find Orisha practitioners in Europe, in Asia even.
Sorry to cut you there. I would like to react. I would like us to react to particular conviction that does it mean that there are some light-skinned folks who are in the diaspora, maybe like Latin Americans, Brazilian, and all that, who still feel like they are the custodian of this particular Orisha religion from West Africa, and so therefore discriminate against the black people who practice Orisha religion?
Well, so the thing is, colonialism did a good number of damage to people on the continent as well as in Latin America. And one of the things that it did was to create separation. And also, there's the element of human nature. So, what happens is in Latin America, people for various generations have been detached from the continent. They remember what they were taught by their ancestors, either their biological ancestors or their spiritual ancestors. They were taught this type of rhetoric. And a fair number of people actually believe that the way in which they practice Orisha is the authentic or the older way of Orisha practice, whereby Yoruba people in contemporary West Africa practice the more novel approach to Orisha. That's bizarre. It's completely absurd, but that's how the human mind works sometimes. And if there's no one else to educate people to counteract that, then it just becomes a disease. So it's festered and it's spread in Brazil, in Cuba, everywhere that Orisha is practiced. Not everyone thinks like that, but a good amount of people think like that. And it's also a self-defense mechanism in order to establish their authority, their position. Because if you have someone, Olorisha, Babalawo, that speaks Yoruba language fluently, is born and raised at the source of Orisha, there's always going to be something that person knows just a little bit more. Even if a person has 100 Orisha in their home, if a Babalawo Orisha only has 2 or 3 Orisha, they're still learning Ese of Oduifa. They're still learning Ese of Odu of Osa and Dilopia. So the knowledge will still be there, regardless if they have the shrines of those Orisha. But that's not the case in Latin America because people do not speak Yoruba language anymore. What they use is simply a lexicon, a vocabulary of Yoruba word remnants, what they use for ritual purposes, like a ritual language. So people get defensive. And that's also understandable. We have to be compassionate. And I always remember something that my own Oluwa told me years ago, because it seems as if the number of Orisha practitioners in the world may be, I don't know if they've done a correct census, there may be more numerable in the diaspora than in Yoruba land itself, which still makes sense. Why? Because Yoruba land is one geographic location, whereby the diaspora comprises various countries. So if it's spread because of the transatlantic slave trade, the numbers are there. And my Oluwa said, sometimes it's good to look at it as if, maybe Oludumare made it that way, so that we in Yoruba land that are, the custodians of Orisha, don't become too proud. So, that kind of balance is needed when engaging these conversations because they're very delicate and people are very firm in their conviction. And there's a lot of polarization.
Yeah. But then instead of we living at home, the West Africans who are the let's say the direct, let me use the word direct descendants or the custodian, the original custodian of the Orishas, instead of us to look at it the way your own Oluwo look at it, as a way of the universe trying to humble us for us to come back to basics, we rather meet it with so many indignation, so many anger, and yet we still do not embrace it. Because an average African person living in Africa will rather call Jesus, will rather call Allah than to call the Orishas. He will rather expect an angel from the Bible to appear to him than pay veneration to the ancestors who are the saints of old. So I don't know if there's a word you want to say to our people in that regards, because I know it's a sensitive issue and we don't want to step on toes, but I'm saying that if you will not do it, if you allow your father's house to get broken down and someone else who is a stranger come to pick it up, Why the fight? This person is still trying to ensure that the legacy of your forefathers did not go into ruin. But I think they are also scared of something. I told our people, I said, the moment they write the narrative of Shango, Ogun, Oya, and the rest to be white people, to be white ancestors, they will fill up the old street of Africa. Everyone will leave church, they will leave mosque and embrace it. There's something in the subconscious of an African child. They just want things to be presented to them as being white, not black. An average African child will dream and see a black person in a dream. He'll wake up and say, I rebuke you in Jesus' name. But when they see a white guy, if either a Greek guy, either Ptolemy image of this and that, they will be sharing testimony and saying they have seen the Lord, they have gone to heaven and back and all that. What words do you actually have to say to our folks in Africa right now who are deassociating themselves from the Orisha practice while attaching themselves to the religion of invaders and still rebuking or feeling indignant to people of your own types and likes who are embracing this particular Orisha practice?
Luckily, I haven't experienced animosity from most Yoruba people I've encountered. The
Okay.
animosity I've experienced has been from maybe some very few Yoruba people from, let's say, London or maybe the United States. And again, I think that's their own, maybe the pain that they're struggling with, because in those situations, a lot of times they were born and raised in London or the United States and maybe didn't have access to the culture. So somehow they feel they feel painful about their situation, maybe their language skill, or they weren't exposed to Orisha, and they see people from other countries practicing Orisha, whereas the practice is flourishing. So I can understand maybe there's something else, a conflict going on within them. But for the most part, luckily, I haven't dealt with that kind of animosity. But one thing we're dealing with is the legacy of colonialization and indoctrination. And it's happened in West Africa, on the continent in general, and it's also happened in Latin America, where there's a great deal of colorism, and the standard of beauty has to be European. We see that in Yoruba land, where people are bleaching their skin. I think
Mm,
Nigerians are in competition with Filipinos. Filipinos in Asia bleach their skin too, and the
mm,
bleaching skin bleach products are a multi-million dollar industry, or if you
yeah.
will. So there's a real problem for people to embrace their look, their aesthetic, and I think African spirituality is a part of, again, that conversation where it can help people to embrace a more global or wider spectrum of what beauty is. Dealing with, and then also, so yesterday, one of my friends on Facebook, he's African American, he posted something on Facebook. He said, everybody hates what slavery did, except for Christianity and Islam. So it's a generalization, but you see it. You see a lot of people here in the States that speak about the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and the period of enslavement, but they will demonize African spirituality.
Mm,
They themselves are not aware that that was a strategy to colonize people.
mm,
And
mm,
so people are working from a place of emotion. I
mm.
think people have to take a breath, take a deep breath, sit down, and analyze things intelligently first. And so for our folks in Yoruba land, it's
Yeah.
very deep. I think sometimes it's easier to deal with people in the West because the education system, in terms of the contribution of African peoples here in the States, is not perfect, but at least there's more awareness. Whereas people on the continent, sometimes they're in a bubble. Although they may see movies, they may see, news stations, they may see what's happening around the world. But in terms of education, children are not brought up to understand how African people spread throughout the world. What are
Mm,
the conditions of living? What were the conditions of living? How did African people get to other parts of the globe?
mm, mm.
So it's going to take people to, think things through and at least listen. One thing that we can do is, of course, always try to be compassionate, but we can't stop educating people. And as
All
we
right.
educate, we learn better techniques to help penetrate that thick shell, that wall that people build up.
Thank you very much for that response. Because when you took it from the angle of having to bleach their skin, put on an artificial hair, trying all their best to raise their nose, go for liposuction, and all of this things just to look European, and then come back to backstab or even blackmail the Europeans for taking them slavery. I said, this is you voluntarily going into slavery by yourself. It has become something systematic, and even the fact that you go to praise the white Jesus and the fair skinned Muhammad is enough for you to know that you are a slave. You are a voluntary slave to yourself. I noticed that all the while when you talk about we the Yoruba, you almost sinking yourself into the culture and also becoming like a defendant of that particular race and all that. Do you see yourself more as a Yoruba person than the white person that everybody else see you as?
No, I see myself as Nathan,
Oh.
Aikulola,
Mm,
Windara, Olunwos, Agbawuni, my
mm,
own personal identity.
mm.
As a Latino, we're mixed culturally, so our
All right.
culture reflects that. And so when
Mm,
I adopted Yoruba culture, also, I'm not trying to be a Yoruba. I'm not trying to turn myself into an African. I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. But it is part of my culture now. I was initiated
mm,
in Yoruba land. I speak the language. I eat Yoruba food. I also eat Puerto Rican food. I eat Thai food. I enjoy, different types of cuisine. But it's part of who I am and part of who a lot of people are in this global community nowadays. I think all of us will benefit from speaking at least two languages,
mm,
traveling, seeing other ways of life, other religions, religious practices to make us more well-rounded individuals. But if you ask
mm,
me, is Yoruba culture part of me? Yes, it is.
mm,
It doesn't stop me from being a Puerto Rican, doesn't stop me from being American.
mm.
It's also part of my identity that I also embrace, and I try to do it as honorably as possible. Because again, this also Orisha in Yoruba land is an ethnic religion, whereas in the diaspora it's become a global religion. So there's a
Mm.
different
That's true.
dynamic.
That's true. That's true.
Mhm.
That's true. The Orisha practice is in diaspora a global religion, so to say. In Nigeria or in Africa, it is an ethnic kind of way of life.
Mhm.
But I keep telling people that when we look at African spirituality as the name implies, we realize that spirituality is not about the color or the race you are. It's about your divinity. And our divine self does not have a tag, does not have a race, does not have a color, does not have a designation. You are just as one as the universe itself. You can't say the universe is a he or a she, him or her, a animal or a human. The universe is just a universe. And I love the way you answer the question. For us to understand that speaking to the universe, hearing from nature, using the Divination system to know the mind of this creator, which is the sole reflection of the creation itself, has nothing to do with color or identity. It's not left for everyone to embrace it the way they want to embrace it. And I'm saying this to settle this deep-rooted hatred of the black folks against those who are fair-skinned regarding practicing African spirituality, because I said to them that when you look at it very well from the scientific or evolution point of view, you realize that every other race actually emanated from Africa.
Mhm.
It is a law of adaptation and also climatic condition that began to affect everyone's color, the way we speak, what we eat, what we like, and all that. There is this spreading across of all other races from Africa. And either we like it or not, everyone is our brother, even if they are hostile against us. Everyone is our sister. We are of the same mother, which is the universe itself. And if you release your own birthright to other people to embrace, that should not be the problem of the one who embraced it. It should be your problem who allow yourself to get to lose this particular gift that you have in you. I'm going to be moving to another kind of question right now. I am of the opinion that African spirituality is divided into three classes. The first class are the Onishegun, which are the herbalists. Those are the people who were mentored by Osoyin. They are like our pharmaceutical department in African spirituality. They use herbs and plants to do medicinal stuff for people. You need to be healthy first physically before you can start thinking about spiritual being. The the spiritualists are the ones we call Babalawo, who are the followers of Orunmila, who sees what others cannot see, who are able to understand the mind of nature. Then we have the specialists who are the Olorisha, we call them Olorisha because the person who is actually administering the energy of Shungo to a person cannot go to the shrine of Oshun and say, I want to also administer Oshun. There are people who are designated in our society for all of those things. We have the family of Eshu. We have those ones who are Oje, who do masquerade. We have the one of Oshun who are into power. We have the Olokun and the rest of them. Of all these classes, these three classes, which are the pharmaceutical, the general practitioner, which are the Babalawo, and also the specialist, which are the Olorisha. Which one do you identify more with? Are you a Babalawo, are you Onishegun, or you are Olorisha?
I wouldn't call myself Onisegun. And the reason why is because although sometimes when people speak of Onisegun, sometimes people do take Osai out of the equation, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I know it's also a reality.
Yeah.
So we have all these Afa that also are engaging in medicinal practices in Yoruba land. And they may be Muslim by day, or even in their own practice, they're known as Muslim clerics or practitioners of Islam, and they still practice herbal medicine.
Yeah.
So I'm Babalao and Olorisha at the same time. And all Babalao also Olorisha because Oromila is Olorisha. But when we say Babalawo, we tend to be a little bit more specific in reference to the priest of Oromila, the diviner that uses Ikinfa Okbele. So I use Ikinfa, I use Okbele, but I also sometimes use Eringi Logun. So I have my own mentors for Eringi Logun in Oyo and Oshogbo. And I try to juggle because what happens is my position here in the States and in the diaspora in general, I'm one of the people that's been able to learn to speak Yoruba language. So it's become like a responsibility for me to also teach other people that are coming and are interested in more of a West African approach to Orisha tradition. So I have to provide a great deal of versatility and understanding, a general understanding of various other Orisha. I'm not claiming I'm, a specialist in any. I try to do the best I can so that in my lifetime I can at least leave a positive impact, and then others will continue. That's at least my hope.
All right. Thank you very much for answering that. In your course of practicing the Orisha spirituality, have you had people who practice this so-called the religion of the Western world, which is maybe Christianity and Islam, coming to you for solution?
Yeah, we have that all the time. I've had I even it was in New York City when I used to live in New York City. One time I had he had a church, a pastor of a church. I don't know if he was African American or if he was from the Caribbean, but he actually I don't know how he found out about this. I guess he may have heard about it. He wanted some medicine that he can use to gain a congregation. That was the first time I experienced it in my home. I had experienced that in my Oluo's house before. His house always sees Christian and Muslim clientele that come for divination and Ebo. They provide services for them and then they go. But we know that they practice mainly Christianity or Islam, and they simply go to Ifa, to Orisha for a solution of problems. But that was my first time experiencing it in my home. It's like, wow, the world is a very small place. And it was uncomfortable because I've always seen that from the outside, and I'm thinking to myself, how is it that my elders or my people in Yoruba land are providing services to people that are actually speaking ill about our tradition in their churches or in their mosques? How is it that we're somehow empowering them, yet they're not engaging us in a conversation of mutual growth, tolerance, and mutual respect? So so at that time, when I had that individual come through, it became a conundrum for me. I thought conundrum in the sense that I know I wasn't going to give him anything for him to have congregation. That's my own set of ethics. I don't care how much money the person is paying me for. But if they want Sawure, if they want Eyonu, Aseta, there's nothing wrong with that. So, but even my Olu, I'm so happy that my Olu and other Babalawo and Oshobo and other areas have openly stated we are no longer providing arimale for any pastor, any imam. No, we're no longer doing that. If you have a business, you sell cloth, maybe you have a restaurant, okay, that's fine. But we can't be empowering a group of people that are discriminating against us. So I'm very glad to see that Orisha people, Orisha communities in Yoruba land are becoming more vocal. They're speaking out. One thing is okay, bye, about all of the challenges they've been facing, and finally they're meeting them head on instead of being silent lambs waiting for the slaughter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Oluwi Osha. And somebody is asking if you are Nathan Lugo. I think that's right? You are Nathan
Yes,
Lugo.
correct.
All right. So it's Nathan Lugo. He has said that in the beginning of this program. I want to also share a little bit of my experience regarding this the hypocritical lifestyle we live here in Africa. Like everybody know my story, and I'm always very eager to tell them. I was born in a Muslim home. My Islamic name is Sahidina Ali. I went to mosque and I read Quran and all that. I did walimat. I saw no sense in Quran because the moment you know the interpretation of Quran, you realize that you are just listening to a folklore, a tale. Then I became a Christian. I went to Bible college. I got my degree in theology. I studied Kemetic theology. I studied Zoroastrian theology. But I have a grand uncle whom I grew up with, and he has always been blind since I was born. But he's an Oluwo, and his Ifa is always with him. And he has always embraced me, and he come to me, and we spoke, and he started doing the induction. And then when I was also learning from him, I realized that a lot of these mosque people, they are far. When they finish this Wolimat, which is the graduation ceremony for their students, they will send them to my Oluwo to come and learn Ifa. But Arabic is just a language. It is not an heavenly language. It is a language you can learn. So when you go to this Alpha and it's checking the sand and all of those things, and it's using Arabic, is speaking Arabic, but using Arabic to do the offer, the incantation, and all this oriki of Oduifa. Are you getting my point? No, it's not doing Arabic for the sake of Arabic. It's using the language to speak about Ifa. And practically what they do is to do the Babalawo work. So when I was learning from him, we started talking, and he said one thing to me. He said, either they use our way or they use their way. Let it be in their subconscious that we are the most relevant and the only thing that matters. And I told him, I said, when I graduate, I'm not going to entertain these people. He said, your job in this life is to publicize and tell the world what these people do to us. And never you be afraid to call them out, because there is no power in the name of any Jesus, and there is no fire in the name of any Allah. If there's any power, if there's any fire, we give it to them. He said, and he started mentioning names of GOs, pastors, and all that. And he said, you can't naked them in the open and you not see Bante and all those Ogun behind them. Why are they calling Jesus? Why are they not going into flame? Why is fire not burning there? All this Holy Ghost fire, and we laughed and all that. You see, I want our people to know the particular lifestyle that we live right now. It seems as if everything that is original, that comes from the origin, is fake to them. We neglect the source, and yet we want to be resourceful. We rather present ourselves as a slave to these people to administer to us a little bit of their knowledge and give us approval to live our life instead of us to approach freedom. You want to say something?
No, I'm listening attentively.
All right. Instead of them to approach freedom, and they come to me and they say African spirituality is demonic. I said, what is demon? What is demon? What is a demon? What is demonic? What is your definition of demon or being demonic? Is it when you want to kill me and I prevail over you? Is that what makes me demonic? Is it when you want to hurt me and I got to know before you do? Is that what makes me demonic? And I always tell them that, do you know that there is duality of life? Bad people can practice African spirituality. Good people can practice African spirituality, just like we have bad and good people in church or mosque and all that. So if I choose to use my knowledge of nature and the universe to do what is evil, you can't say that the knowledge of nature in itself is demonic. No, it is the person who uses the gun to kill people. Guns don't kill people. No gun has ever triggered itself. Somebody had to program it for triggering. Somebody had to shoot that trigger. So I keep explaining to them, and they were like, "Oh wow, that's cool." And I said, "Do you know that most of your pastors even come to me to do what they call awaru, the most demanded kind of charm?
Mm-hmm.
There are two demanded kind of charm from these people, both if Imam. They want awaru and they want ishiju. The
Mm-hmm.
awaro is when they call crowd to them, let
Mm-hmm.
everybody come and order. And you and I know that whenever we want to start a open market or maybe a business, there is this job we do so that people can patronize us. The
Mm-hmm.
job is not what is going to give us money. The job will just make people love our product. It is
Mm-hmm.
now left to us to engage in good customer relation and also
Mm-hmm.
to be able to carve a niche for ourselves to retain the customers. These guys will come, they want awaro for their church to be filled to the brim. And they also want a schedule where they will be able to see vision. All these gifts of the Holy Spirit that they say they have, interpretation of tongues, seeing, and all those things, that they come to us. So one day I was telling one, I said, "Do you know if I give you this particular charm to see, in the next 20 years or so, you will be blind because there are always negative consequences to all of this dangerous knowledge that you want me to share with you?" And he said he doesn't mind. He's a big pastor in Lagos. I live in Lagos. He will be listening to this. He said he doesn't mind. That was the essence of sin and no money. He wants to be able to see people's bank accounts, be able to hypnotize them, be able to tell them this and that. And when you tell people that this will happen to you or this is what you ate last night, you have actually naked them. You are able to get what you want from them. They begin to pour and you know, all of those things. I said, you will die. You will not only be blind, you will also be mad. When you run mad, you will put yourself in danger and you will die. He said he doesn't mind dying a miserable death, that 20, 25 years is enough to be relevant in life. And that's why I now told him that not because we, the Babalawo, cannot do this, but because we also made the covenant before the issue, which is the energy of equity, that no matter how much we know, we will not dip our hands in what is evil. Now, these are the pastors and imam trying to convince us to do what is evil for them. And we, they call demonic, are the one who is now lecturing them on how to just take it easy, and all that. I want you to also tell people at home about this deceit called heaven and hell. The concept of heaven and hell has been something, once you go added, something that has been used to perpetrate evil in the heart of every African, where we believe there is no immediate consequences for our actions, and where we also believe that this particular life is useless since we have option B. I always tell people the moment you have option B, you will mess up option A. People want to go to heaven where things will be cool, where everything will be fine, but they mess up the earth where they are. Do you believe in heaven? Do you believe there's hell? Do you believe that Eledumare, which is our head Orisha in African spirituality, is going to sit one day and put some people in hell and some people in heaven?
No, I don't believe that. I believe that there is, payment for whatever it is that we do. If we do good, we get repaid with good. Likewise, if we do evil, we get repaid with harm. Everything is a balance. And the perspective in Yoruba culture of Oludumare is that Oludumare delegated the Orisha to do certain duties. Ishu is there to provide a very vital role, which the colonizers did not understand. Because coming from a Christian or Abrahamic religion, they understand complete duality. There's either good or bad, nothing in between. Whereas the Yoruba concept is balance, male, female, cool, warm, and everything has a context. So I love the example that you gave about a gun that doesn't fire itself. I also want to take it further and say a gun can protect someone, his or her family, his or her country, but it can also be used to murder someone unjustifiably. Likewise, fire. Likewise, a knife. A knife is very useful, but it can do terrible harm. So, Yoruba spirituality, African spirituality has the understanding of the duality of the world, and so when they didn't understand that, they demonized it. They try to equate it with their devil. We don't have any need for a concept of hell because we have the understanding in Yoruba spirituality worldview that this world tibitire la dalaye,
Benny.
and also whatever we do, we're gonna get back. people also are living their destiny in this lifetime. They're living a destiny that they have to live to its full course. And we also believe in reincarnation, whereby that person will return, acquire a new skin, and live a new destiny, and continue that process of learning and development and growth. So we don't have any need to, strike fear in people's hearts with this concept of a hell. There is none. There is no. And also, if we wait for people to get, how do you say, punished or reprimanded in the afterlife, what are we doing here now to correct certain behavior? So are we just going to wait for Oludumare to descend or wait for the person to die to not correct certain things? And we also, don't believe in the harshest type of punishment either. Yoruba spirituality believes in talking about situations, having a conversation, hearing both parties. It's when we deviate, is when we see our people deviate from that value system that there's problems.
Thank you very much, Oluwin. At this point, I want us to just spend 2 or 3 minutes speaking in mother tongue, which is Yoruba, because there are a lot of people on the comment section thinking that, okay, is this the one who speaks Yoruba? And everybody was like, wow. Wọ́n fẹ́ láti bẹ̀rẹ̀ wípé ẹ̀yin gẹ́gẹ́ bí èèyàn kan tí ẹ jẹ́ babaláwo, ǹjẹ́ ẹ rò pé iṣẹ́ babaláwo yìí ó ṣe é fi lọ́mọ lọ́wọ́? Ṣé iṣẹ́ tá a fi lọ́mọ lọ́wọ́ ni?
Dáadáa. Ṣùgbọ́n nísìnyí, èmi rò pé bóyá nígbà tá a ti di bíi global community, kì í ṣe iṣẹ́ àwò nìkan máa fi lé àwọn ọmọ wa lọ́wọ́. Kí ni ìdí tí mo fi sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni pé àìmọye àwọn babaláwo olóòṣà bóyá lókè ní àwọn ìpínlẹ̀ kan tí wọn ò lè mọ̀wé kà. Tí ọmọ kan bá mọ̀wé kà, kò sí ipò kan tí ò lè dé. Yàtọ̀ sí pé kó máa ṣiṣẹ́ awo títí, òun náà lè jẹ́ bí òṣèlú. A sì nílò òṣèlú gan nínú ìṣẹ̀ṣe. Sẹ́nétọ̀, gómìnà, àwọn tí wọ́n gbèjà wa, àwọn tí wọ́n gbèjà fún ọgbọ́n, tí wọ́n ń jà fún ẹ̀tọ́ wa gẹ́gẹ́ bí àwùjọ olóòṣà, gẹ́gẹ́ bí ẹlẹ́sìn àbáláyé. Tí ò bá sí olóṣèlú tó jẹ́ oníṣẹ̀ṣe, tó jẹ́ ẹlẹ́sìn ìbílẹ̀,
kò sẹ́ni tí ó jà fún wa.
Kò sí.
Mo fowó àtọmọdé lẹ́nu bàbá. Lẹ́nu ọjọ́ mẹ́ta yìí, ó jọ ń pé bí ìjẹta ni. Ọmọbìnrin kan gbajúgbajà ni, òǹkọ̀wé ni, ó sì gbafẹ́. Ló bá kọ wípé ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà yìí kìí ṣe ilẹ̀ ẹlẹ́sìn àjòjì. Kí ni wá ṣe tó yẹ pé báwọn onígbàgbọ́ bá ṣọdún tiwọn, wọ́n máa gba bí ìsinmi nílé bí ẹ̀mẹ́ta lọ́dún. Àwọn oní ìmọ̀le wọ́n máa gba ìsinmi bí ẹ̀mẹ́ta lọ́dún. Ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà, ilẹ̀ adúláwọ̀ ni. Ẹ̀sìn àbáláyé la bá ń bí ìṣẹ̀ṣe là ń ṣe. Ìgbà wo ni wọ́n mọ fún àwa oníṣẹ̀ṣe náà ní ìsinmi ìgbélé? Bíi pé ká fẹ́ ṣe ọdún Ọ̀ṣun Òṣogbo, ká fẹ́ gbéngún, ọdún Agẹmọ níjẹ̀bú. Ìgbà wo níjọba wa gan ò mọ fún wa ní àǹfààní àti lè máa jókòó lé pé ká lọ lè mọ ṣọdún wa? Mo wá rò ó títí mo wá wò wípé gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọ̀rọ̀ tẹ́ ẹ sọ náà nǹkan, wípé a nílò àwọn tó jẹ́ oníṣẹ̀ṣe tó sì ń bẹ́ǹdì òṣèlú tí wọ́n ń ṣe aláyìnìke àti àyínípadà, tí wọ́n mọ jagun fún wa nítorí pé àdá àti ìbọn ò lè ṣe. Ǹjẹ́ wọ́n pè ní process of legislation nu? Wọ́n tẹ́ńdà òfin, wọ́n sì sọ pé ẹ bá gbà á yẹ̀wò, àwa náà lẹ́tọ̀ọ́ láti lè gbárùkọ báyìí. Kódà gómìnà ìpínlẹ̀ gan yóò jẹragún ni. Gómìnà ìpínlẹ̀ tó jẹ́ pé ìpínlẹ̀ rẹ̀ ni wọ́n ti ń ṣe òòṣà yìí. Àwọn èèbó sì mọ wá, àwọn lárúbáwó mọ wá, gbogbo èèyàn lórílẹ̀ àgbáyé ó mọ wá. Sì ń lè fún wọn ní òfin pé lọ́jọ́ òní sọ́jọ́ ọ̀la ò kẹ́ ẹ jókòó lé. Really, people are told what we're trying to talk about is the the marginalization of those who practice African spirituality in all countries of Africa. Every country in Africa will give public holiday to Christians, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Muslims, they even celebrate the birthday of Muhammad. But nobody actually celebrate the day we are remembering or pouring veneration to Ogun Oya and the rest of them. And what Olumu is saying is that if we don't have even some of our Babalawo in the cadre of politics to be able to fight for us, we are going to everly be disenfranchised as people. You can continue, sir. Sorry that I cut you short in that area.
Ṣé ká máa sọ ní Gẹ̀ẹ́sì àbí Yorùbá?
Ẹ fi Yorùbá
àwọn
parí
ọ̀rọ̀ náà ó ṣe
ẹsẹ̀ lè.
kókó. Okay.
Ẹ fi Yorùbá parí ẹsẹ̀ lè.
So mo máa sọ fún yàn títí pé tá bá tí ka àwọn ọdún tá ń ṣe nílẹ̀ Yorùbá wọ́n ti pọ̀ jù. Ojoojúmọ́ la máa ń sọdún. Ṣùgbọ́n ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀ṣun fún àpẹẹrẹ àti ní Ìṣẹ̀ṣe Day. Lóṣogbo ló ti wá bẹ̀rẹ̀ bó ṣe wá fọ́nká. Mo rò pé kò sí ìpínlẹ̀ kan, kò sí ìlú nílẹ̀ Yorùbá tí ò ṣe Ìṣẹ̀ṣe Day yàtọ̀ sí Ọ̀yọ́. Wọ́n jà fún Òrìṣà Day àbí kinní kan torí wọ́n sì ní àwọn ìdí tí wọ́n fẹ́ fi ṣàtakò Ìṣẹ̀ṣe Day lọ́yọ̀ọ́. Nǹkan tí wọ́n sọ ó ti yé wọn. Ṣùgbọ́n ó fẹ́ jọ Ìṣẹ̀ṣe Day náà ni torí nǹkan tá fi gbé àṣà ìṣe àtẹ̀sìn àbáláyé lárugẹ ni. Ní Benin Republic wọ́n ti ní Vodun Festival fún àwọn tí wọn ò mọ̀ nípa Vodun. Ó dàbí òrìṣà náà ni pé àwọn òrìṣà tá ń sìn náà ni wọ́n ń pè ní Vodun láàrin àwọn tá mọ̀ sí eégún láàrin àwọn fọ́n, àwọn àjà, àwọn ewé nǹkankan.
Àwọn àjàṣẹ́.
Àwọn àjàṣẹ́ wọ́n jọ ń gbé ni. So irú kan bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n ti ń ṣe tipẹ́. Inú mi wá dùn gan nígbà tí wọ́n dá kíní Ìṣẹ̀ṣe Day sílẹ̀ ní Òṣogbo. Mo wà níbẹ̀ nígbà náà. Ṣùgbọ́n a gbọ́dọ̀ dúró. A máa tẹ̀síwájú ni. Yàtọ̀ sí ọjọ́ tá gba ìsinmi. Kí wá ní nǹkan míì tí ìjọba ó fún wa gẹ́gẹ́ bí ẹ̀dá èèyàn. Àwa kì í ṣe ẹ̀sìn ẹ̀kẹta. Ẹ̀sìn àkọ́kọ́ ni.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, àbáláyé, ìṣẹ̀ṣe.
Àbáláyé ni. So why are they being compared to second-class citizens? Tá bá lọ sọ́dún Òṣogbo, ẹ má bínú. Àmọ̀yé àwọn òyìnbó. A lè pè wọ́n lóyìnbó, ṣùgbọ́n àwọn aláwọ̀ dúdú, àwọn aláwọ̀ funfun, àwọn pupa tí wọ́n máa wá láti Brazil, láti Asia, wọ́n máa wá láti sọdún. Tá bá lọ sí church ńkọ́ tàbí mosque, a máa rí àwọn àlejò ńbẹ̀.
Sorry to cut you short. A penny for your thought, yes, sir. We can now switch to English language so that we don't lose our non-Yoruba speaking audience. It's so amazing that when we are doing Ìṣẹ̀ṣe, the African spirituality, veneration, festivity, and all that, we see a lot of white folks there. But when we go to churches, we don't see white folks in our churches. We don't even see the Arab folks in our mosques. It is the black folks you see in churches and in mosques here in Africa. But it is the white folks you see in Ọdún Eégún, the veneration of Eégún, the veneration of Ọ̀ṣun, and the rest of them. And it is the same white folks that brought the Jesus and Muhammad to us. And they now left us there. They expired us in that moment and that zone and began to look for our originality. And you see how we are disenfranchised in Nigeria, as a matter of fact, is that every single year, statutorily, our government, federal government, earmark some certain billions of naira in trust fund to send people to Hajj and Jerusalem for free. Billions of naira to push them to Hajj and Jerusalem for free. When you check our currency in Nigeria, you will see Arabic on our currency. When you check our constitution, it's almost like we are doing constitution for the invaders. These Arabic folks, these Jewish folks. On one of our currency, you see the Star of David. On some of our currency, you see the Arabic whatever. And we are African people in our own land again. It is the African money that is being used to put people in plane and send them to. And then yet they complain that the colonial master took us away when we have also constitutionalized this slavery. It's like going for an internship in the land of slavery these days. So people will neglect the Ocean River, but go and be weeping and crying on the Sea of Galilee or River Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
People will neglect the Opa Romanian and go and be looking for the tomb of Elijah or Elisha. These people will call you and I idol worshiper, but they will be bowing down to Kaaba and also be using their head against the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, crying woefully. They would rather be called Jerusalem pilgrimage or Alaji this or Alaji that than to be called Olorisha this and Babalawo that. This inferiority complex, for once, while we're rounding up, can we talk about the impact of family, the contribution of family background, the influence of parents when it comes to this way of life and our thought pattern as people who practice Orisha?
Okay, that one is also a challenge in Yoruba land because, as you know, in Yoruba culture, you don't go against your father. So, generations ago, when some people, even when we speak of the Oba, Alade, Oloriade, we know that the king is the authority. And so, when they were able to confuse and convert those kings as well as those ancestors into Christianity or Islam, you don't go against your father. So whatever your father says is what you do. So they use that technique to be able to, make these religions proliferate in Yoruba land. And people don't want to be disrespectful to their father because
Juwele Babai.
so we try to avoid those kinds of things. So that one's a challenge. So if a person was brought up in a household where they were demonizing African spirituality, or not just African spirituality, any other form of spiritual religious practice that is not Christianity or Islam, because we have plenty of those like that, then the person is indoctrinated from youth. So they live with a sense of guilt, with a sense of sin, and I can speak from my own personal experience. I consider myself blessed that I was never baptized in Christianity. I never followed any other religion, but my family is mostly Catholic. But I was about 10 years old when I decided for myself. I didn't see any connection with this concept of original sin. I didn't see any sort of empowerment or artistic or empowering worldview in that Catholicism or Christianity. I've come to a place where I respect it, but where I found my home, where I found a sense of extended family, of real empowerment, not just in the spiritual technology that we have, but also in the worldview and also the value system of personal growth and development as a human being. That was my decision for myself. So I see that it's very hard for many Yoruba people raised in a Christian or Muslim household to do that because they have this social pressure from their family. Even if they think a little bit differently, those types of thoughts get subdued, demonized, marginalized. They're taught to cast it to one side, that they're not good, they're not wholesome. You can't question it. If you do, there may be something demonic there, this kind of questioning. Whereas Orisha lifestyle is not like that at all. We're taught to question things. In fact, even if an apprentice, almost trained someplace, maybe their own parents sent that child to train elsewhere, or maybe they went to a festival. Their father or mother sent them to one festival to help assist one of their friends. They may have learned something abroad in one other town, and they come back and they may share what they learned. Their own father or mother will have them question it, not to doubt it, but question the validity of it, question to see how it functions, maybe within their lineage, if it applies, so that a person that practices Orisha is not in the dark. Although there's plenty of esoteric knowledge that we find out gradually once our mentors see our capability, see our ethics, that kind of knowledge gets released gradually. But even when it's taught to people, we're not taught to not question it. We're taught that, yes, you can question it. And Asha, culture, is that which is applicable at this period in time. So all cultures are in a process of even improving and going with what is applicable at this day and age, and we update, not to negate the essential qualities, to preserve them, at the same time make them applicable for today's experiences, our
today's world.
technology, etc.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Olumuyo Osha, for your contribution. I would like to advise our people from home now, start putting your questions down. We'll be picking some questions to ask him. And you can also call in on via this WhatsApp number if you wish to call instead of typing. But if you to put your question on the comment section, we'll also be able to read it out to him. I would like to start the question by asking you the culture, because one of the reasons why these folks feel we are backward, we are obsolete, we are having cave mentality, is this culture of having to, when the king dies, having to kill several people as a way of escorting the king and all that. And I keep arguing with them that is not right. There are myths. There are things that are called oro ishembaye, that we have to do when our king dies. The concept of your Jesus going into the sky, evaporating into the sky, was stolen from us because we believe our kings don't die. They are sent to the sky to be reincarnated. So when the king give up the ghost here, we say Oba Waja. Ìtumọ̀ Waja ni wípé he ascended into, and then they say, I said, you believe that Jesus ascended into the heavens, but you don't believe that our kings also can ascend. Now, in the moment of doing that, we also have some right that we have to do for them to actually, it's like escorting them out of this particular plane so that they can reincarnate again successfully. And during those periods, some people are not allowed to go out. Cleansing, we'll do some cleansing and all that. And some people came up with the idea that people are to be killed, that especially the strangers in the land are to be killed. Do you have a way to demystify this mentality from people that is barbaric and it's not something we do here in African spirituality?
Yeah, so that concept of abobaku, a lot of that is used again to demonize the traditions that we practice. And to me, I love Yoruba funeral rites because I think it gives a human being such an honor. It's their last rite of passage. And it's a way for people to mourn, but also celebrate the life of that individual and help make a shift in energy, because we know it's sad, we're losing someone, and death can be traumatic. But at the same time, we break that cycle with the funeral rites that we do. And, also a king in Yoruba culture is not like the Queen of England. A king in Yoruba culture is the maximum, let's say, the epitome of tradition, spirituality in Yoruba land. They're intimately linked to the Orisha, so much so that we call them Ibakeji Orisha. There's no way to avoid it. So to do away with those rituals, you might as well make that person, an emir or some other ruler of another culture. It would lose its significance entirely. And there's no such thing as people dying with the king. We know that in ancient times, we're talking about centuries ago, there were certain things done by all cultures, not just Yoruba, not just African cultures, but in Europe, Native American cultures. Those times are gone. But we don't know of any of this kind of abobaku in modern day times. We don't know, it's simply a myth that's been regurgitated in order to demonize the process of burial rites for an Oba. Because if the Oba was maybe a Muslim or Christian, which is already an oxymoron in itself, then that king's Muslim or Christian family would not want them to continue to participate in the Orisha rituals that are part and parcel of the crown that they wore. And that final send-off home is almost like the stamp of approval for a king, if we do it the Orisha way.
All right. So, Olu, when you said something like Oba being a Christian or a Muslim as oxymoron, I'd like to ask you a very sensitive question. We have a king who is the Olori Olorisha in the whole of Africa. And this king is called Onirisha for the fact that he's not actually a king. I'm taking liberty to say that. That is not your word. This is my word. People can
Yes.
quote me anywhere. The Oni of Ile-Ife is not a king, but a high priest or a chief priest. He is meant to be the chief priest of all the Orisha people, people who administer Orisha. Not a king that wear crown of the king, but a king that wear crown of the Orisha. That's why they call it Onirisha. Now, but we have an Onirisha in this Nigeria currently, who says that Jesus is his father. We have such a king who stood up for a certain man who is a GO of a certain church, who stood up from his own chair for that man to sit. We have such a title called Are Ona Kakanfo, which is the chief guardian or the warrior or the warlord of all the Yoruba general in the army, who goes to church to do thanksgiving. He was so prostrating, rolling on the floor, that it was Jesus that made it possible for him to be selected as Are Ona Kakanfo. We have such a king who took the Aremo, which is the prince, to the church for dedication, and also went to church to go and do 5-year anniversary of his throne on of his coronation on our own ancestral throne. You as a person, now we've been able to come to solution with our people who feel indignant about your color, that we are one. You as a person, what is your view? What is your take regarding that? Is this supposed to be?
It's very embarrassing actually. It's shameful. For Odisha people that don't live in the West, in the diaspora, they don't understand the number of criticisms that we receive from Odisha practitioners that are not involved in West African format of Odisha practice. They're more involved in religions such as Candomblé, which is a Brazilian manifestation of African spirituality, or the Cuban Lukumi or Regla de Ocha religion. And it reminds me when I was younger and I was seeking Orisha, what I had around me, both in Puerto Rico, in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, as well as in New York, were people that practiced Cuban Orisha religion. I remember one Cuban Babalawo and his wife was in Oloshun, in Puerto Rico, in San Germán, where I was living with my grandparents in Cabo Rojo. And at that young age, I was a teenager. I mentioned to him my desire to go back to the roots, to really seek out the origin of Orisha back in Yoruba land. He said, "Don't do that. The Africans do things backwards. They do things incorrect. Instead, get initiated within this system, and then if you have to change something, then you can do it from within." I said, "I don't want to change anyone's religion, but I want to follow my path and find out what's right for me." So, but it reminds me of that because by having kings Oba in Yoruba land that are Christian or Muslim, it validates the criticism that we receive from diaspora Orisha people. Yoruba people don't always have to face it. Well, now in the Facebook era, social media, they're seeing more of it. Now they're realizing that what I and other people were saying was correct. We weren't exaggerating about the criticism and all the commentary that we received from Cubans, Brazilians, of all complexions, because some people would like to say, oh, it's the white Brazilians, the white Cubans. No, I'm talking black Brazilians, black Cubans as well, of all skin colors, criticizing and saying that there is no more Orisha in West Africa. Oh, you people are foreigners. They only do things halfway, the half initiation for you. They don't do a full initiation. So seeing a king that's a Christian or Muslim in such a sacred position is embarrassing. At the same time, it's also an opportunity to educate people about the processes of colonialism. What does that look like in Africa? What does that look like in the diaspora? We know that one of the techniques was to attack the leaders. We know that the kings are unquestionable, at least in ancient times, except, of course, if they're not performing their duties well. And Yoruba culture has that kind of checks and balances anyway within it. So now we have this monster. What are we going to do with it? We have this problem. What are the solutions? Are we going to acknowledge that there's a problem? What are the ways that we can address this? Are we going to continue to allow, are Yoruba people going to continue to allow Christians and Muslims to occupy a position that is filled to the brim with Orisha lifestyle, culture, spirituality?
Hmm. Hmm.
Unfortunately, our own Orisha people are to blame in Yoruba land. And it's not an attack, because if you belong to a culture and you love your culture, you're also willing to criticize when necessary, when there's a need for improvement. Orisha people have been complacent for far too long. They've been silent. So if they've been silent and now we come to this situation, this place, who are we to blame? People had choices, they had opportunities. We have opportunities now. So what are people going to do to address it? I've met with the Oni before. He seems like a nice enough man. So it's not an attack against him or any king, but one has to question it. How is it that a Christian or Muslim is filling the role of one of the most sacred positions in Yoruba spirituality?
Hmm.
How do we come to this place?
Thank you very much, Oluwin. Somebody is asking a question. He said, were we not doing Orisha while we were selling ourselves as slaves? That was before we took to Christianity. I don't know if I should answer that, because I always ask people like these, people who says that, okay, where were the Orishas when they were taking us as slaves? They are forgetting that there is a place of traitors. Yoruba people say, Biku le oba pani, tode o le pani. It was still these same kings who were cutting us away for the price of umbrella, who were selling us away for the price of mirror, who were selling our people away for the price of bicycle, and a lot of things that was given to them. So when your own mother's son leak the secret of the family to a foreigner, there is nothing you can do to defend yourself. Not to mention that the custodian of the Orishas are the same one who were selling us away. They were the chief negotiator, they were the chief merchants when it comes to slave. Nobody takes people away from this land without the approval of the kings who were on the throne then. The Jaja of Opobo, the Oba of Bede that resisted, they came to their town, their republic with guns and fight them and destroyed everything they had to do with force. And I always also ask people that where was Yahweh when Adolf was killing the Israelis? Was he not powerful anymore? People are quick to just come and
Mm-hmm.
say something
Mm-hmm.
against what. Say,
Mm-hmm.
where was Yahweh? Where was Jesus? At least they say Jesus has come and died before Hitler, right? They say Yahweh. All the thunderous voice that he was speaking, all this wailing, threatening people, killing others, and bamboozling people, and all those things that he was doing. Why didn't he do it when Adolf Hitler was dealing with the Israelis? So when people ask this kind of question, I really do not know what to answer them with. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, sir.
There's not much to add. You know, Yoruba worldview is different from that of Christianity. We don't have Orisha like a crutch. We're taught that we have to do for and fend for ourselves as well. The Orisha are there to defend us, to help us, but we're also given choices to make decisions, and we're supposed to advocate for ourselves because we're each on this spiritual path, this journey of self growth and discovery. The Orisha are not there to take away those lessons for us. They're not there to, you know, if that was the case, then we might as well just ask the Orisha to simply select the next president, to give us electricity, give us gas. That's the Orisha not there for that. That's our responsibility as human beings. Olodumare made things in an orderly fashion. Olodumare has her role, its role. The Orisha have their role. We as human beings have our own role to play. So even the folks that are going to Jerusalem, going to these other rivers for their own pilgrimages, we have our own sacred spots, sacred bodies of water in Yoruba land that we have to take care of and preserve. That's our responsibility, not the Orisha. That's not their role to play. So there's not much you can. That question will always arise. I think we lost our friend Abayoba.
Hello, I apologize. My network went so berserk. Are you still
Okay,
there?
no worries.
All right,
Yes.
sorry. Okay, so you were saying something about the slavery and all that that people were talking about.
Yeah, so people want to place the responsibility on the Orisha, on the
Mm,
deity, when it's really a human issue. The Orisha have their own role to play, but that's not
yeah.
their role. Our role is to select our leaders. Our role is
Mm,
for our personal growth. The Orisha are there to help us through life, but we're still meant to go through the lessons and make choices and have character development. The Orisha
mm,
are not there for that. So when people try to blame the Orisha, I love the way you said, where were the Abrahamic deities when Adolf Hitler was destroying, murdering the Jewish people? So many other examples of that. So that question can be asked of any religion, but our tradition does not teach us that Olodumare or the Irumale are supposed to do our work. It's our work to do, not theirs. They have their own work.
thank you very much. And that's why when somebody asked me about if I believe in God on Franklin's platform, I said, if God is the one in the sky, I don't believe in that God, because
Mhm.
that dude that was taught you by Abrahamic religion that lives in the sky is what is I define as irresponsibility. Being a God requires you to be responsible for your life. For example, if you are hungry, it is not God that is required to make your food, it is you. When you get hungry, you realize that you are the one who provide food for yourself,
Mhm.
either by first clearing the field, planting what you need, harvesting it, and cooking it, or working for the money, buying it, and eating. When you say your life is the hand of God, you are making a very silly statement that is belonging to the fools. When you say my life is in the hand of God and you want to cross the road, why do you look to the left or the right before you cross the
Mhm.
road? Why don't you let God put you across the road? When you say God come and take the wheel, close your eyes and say God come and take the wheel. You will meet that God immediately. A lot of people use this word God to shove their responsibility, and God is the way, is the hero that people created for themselves just to hide from their harsh reality. When you live a responsible life, to take initiative, to work things out, to create the life you want, you realize that your belief in God will be so minimal and even not there. Well, a lot of people want somebody else to do what they need to do for themselves, always believe in God. So you say, are you going to get this done? They say, by the grace of God. Come, get it done. Get the right knowledge. Get the right information. Get it done. And that is
Mhm.
what African spirituality is all about. You have an issue, you have a concern, you come to Ifa. Ifa is the voice of the universe. Then when we get the instruction, it is still you that will be given the procedure on how to get those things done. Ifa does not get things done for you. Ifa gives you the directives and also the instructions on what to get on. And a lot of people are avoiding Ifa divination and consultation of the universe because they don't want to get it done. They want a miracle. They want a God that will put the food on their laps. They want a God that will help them manage their characters, and yet they will not behave themselves. They want a God that will just give them a miracle money, a God that can promise them billions of naira in the following week just by doing nothing or even bidding for no contract. Such an idea of God, I do not believe in it. I will take one more question, and then we'll allow you to go. Uh, Damaris, Ifadare is asking you that you said when you wanted to learn about Isheshe, you were told not to because Africans do this backwards. How do we make sure there is some degree of uniformity in practicing Isheshe all across the globe? They're asking you that question. Did you get the question? Should I
Mm.
read it again?
Mhm. No, I'm actually reading it here as well,
All
so
right.
that's
Thank you.
helpful. So again, I have to reiterate because people sometimes ya eleti odingba me. I didn't
Mm,
say I personally believe Africans do things backwards. I was told by some Cuban babalawo, and it wasn't the first time. I was told throughout the years I've been exposed to Orisha people from Brazil, from Cuba, white, black, and in between, not just white Cubans or white Brazilians, that Orisha has been lost in West Africa. That the Alaufi sent people to Cuba to learn how to play bata because it was lost in Oyo. So many ridiculous statements. As a matter of fact, I'm glad that I'm able to speak about this because I even debunked all of these various myths and asked people to contribute to all the stupid, ridiculous myths that we've also heard coming from our folks in the diaspora about Orisha practice in West Africa. And I placed this on Facebook. And can you imagine some elders in Yoruba land, Orisha people, that speak and write English quite fine? They may have even written books. They accused me that I was fabricating that was actually my belief. But we know that was just a way to kind of marginalize me, or like cyberbullying. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to reiterate, that's not my belief. That's why I went to West Africa, because I knew that the source is where the knowledge is in terms of Yoruba language and literature, oral literature, in terms of the percussion, in terms of herbology, the worldview, even the philosophy, which is most often lacking in diaspora manifestations of Orisha practice. The philosophy is vibrant and living to help guide people on this journey in Yoruba land. So just wanted to clarify that. Also, in terms of uniformity, our tradition is diverse. It's always been diverse, and it always will be diverse. In fact, there isn't just one Yoruba religion or one practice of Orisha. Each community has its way of practice, because we're dealing with knowledge that is vast and deep. There's no way to pigeonhole it. We can look at commonalities, common threads that we can do. We can know that, okay, these communities all share certain principles, certain practices, certain elements, but it's not just one way of being. Even the deities are, we have a plethora of deities that have their own duties. We don't have just one deity. There's no way that our tradition believes that one deity can encapsulate everything. Even Olodumare itself gave duties to all these different deities. Everybody has their own work to do, and they have their own individual contribution. So in a way, it's teaching us that people have their own identity as well. While they engage in a community, in a family, and they have their own roles to play, there's room for personal growth and for people to shine as individuals as well. Because what you know, I don't know. What I know, you don't know. But if we put the two together, we get the work done more appropriately. So I don't believe in uniformity. I don't believe in complete uniformity. I believe in education.
All right.
Training.
Thank you very much. We'll be rounding off right now, and not because of anything, but because I need to also attend to some things.
Yes.
I want to appreciate you for allowing us to have you on this platform. I believe in the nearest future, we'll be bringing you back on some other topics. And like you also said regarding the African spiritual practitioners in diaspora, we'll round up with this particular word. This experience, a certain lady reached out to me. She's from Angola, who was born in UK, and she wanted to consult with me. And while I was explaining things to her, she kept talking about, is it sonatary or whatever they call it in Brazil, whatever they call it, and different aspects of this water and all those. I said, I don't know about that, because they have actually added some more to it, which I think might not be necessary, or which I think are even overblowing the whole thing. Somebody want to talk about the person of the deity who is Oshun, let's say Ogun, Shango, and somebody is like somebody is majoring on the hairstyle of Ogun and calling that spirituality. Somebody is majoring on the acts of Ogun and calling it spirituality. Somebody is majoring on the thunderbolt of Ogun and calling. I said in here in West Africa, Ogun is a totality. It is the part of it you need that we don't differentiate them and say this is a part of Ogun and majoring it. And she had that particular conflict, cognitive dissonance within her. And at the end of the day, when I tried to tell her what the real deal is, but she wanted me to believe what she has learned, she eventually started calling me a scammer. I believe sometimes people who do not understand what you're talking about, or who have a preconceived notion or some kind of adulterated mentality, always want to project their ignorance on you. And I believe so far so good. We have highlighted so many questions we need to highlight today till the next time. If people want to reach you, sir, how can they do that?
So they can reach me on Instagram with Olunwiosa.
Okay.
just as it's spelled. It should be spelled up there.
All right.
I'm
Somewhere
also
here.
one of your followers, so if
All
you
right.
find one of my comments, feel free to follow me there.
All right. Thank you very much. You can follow him on at Olumi_Osha on Instagram. And if you need more information regarding Baba Yoruba, you can visit my website, www.ubabayoruba.org. In need of consultation, if you want to hear from the universe and nature, or if you can reach out to my WhatsApp number. It is right here. You can either chat it. Please don't call it. Chat it. Chat it. Chat it. Chat it. Please don't call it. I put call because of the sake of this particular program. But really, just chat it and put a Boruboye on it, and then we keep the conversation coming. And apologies to those who are on the waiting list whom I have not answered yet. So far, so good. I will eventually get back to you. You are free to interact with Olumi Osha anytime you like. Follow him on social media, Olumi_Osha on Instagram. We'll surely bring him back some other time. Thank you very much, Babawu, for joining us today.
And thank you as well.
You're welcome. All right, sir. Take care of yourself and don't forget to subscribe and also hit the notification button. Till the next time we see you again. Baba, can you give us some iwure in Yoruba language, please?
Okay. Okay, well, usually if we pour libation, we may pour libation with water. So this is an interesting one. I like this one, just to round it up, because there's some sacred oral recitation that Cubans use that they don't always understand what they chant. In Ofumeji, we say, tutu laro de, tutu laro baba, tutu laro je, omi to tutu, ni o tẹnu ẹja jáde wá, ifá fún Ọ̀rúnmìlà, bàbá ó jayé tó tutù tó yìnyín, ayé wa ó tutù jómi lọ, Ọ̀rúnmìlà ló jayé tó tutù tó yìnyín, ayé wa ó tutù jómi lọ. So I pray in the name of Ọ̀rúnmìlà, Ọbàtálá, all the alale, àwọn tó láyé. I pray that our lives be cool, that as we bring forth all the topics on this conversation, we also have the solution and are able to resolve them with peace of mind. So some of the Cubans will recognize that tutu laro de, tutu laro baba, but they won't quite understand what the meaning is. But that'll be for another time.
All right, no problem. We'll do the interpretation some other time. So, gbegbe ìgbésókò àrèmábọ̀ àyúnlọ àyúnbọ̀bá ìlọ́wọ́ ń yẹnu. Fíní báyìí ládìyẹ ń tó kó èṣìṣẹ́ bọ̀. Gbogbo ibikíbi tá a bá lọ á padà dé. Ẹni bá ní a má bọ̀ ńlá ní dé bá. Láṣẹ ìdùà, láṣẹ orí gbogbo wa. Adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ orí, adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ilẹ̀. Adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ọ̀gẹ́rẹ́ àfọkọ́yẹrí alápò èrè fún wa, alápò èbè fún àwọn tí ń ṣe tiwa níbẹ̀. Wọ́n wá ní wípé àgbẹ̀ ní dún wáríwárí àlùkò ní dún wárùwárùn àṣẹmọ̀gà ní dún màpàyí ògèrè jáfe adúá fún ẹ̀mí tí ń sọmọ lọ́rìndínríndín báyé bá mú ọ lápá wọn máa bọ́ àwa bọ́ lọ́wọ́ ayé lónìí o báyé bá mú ọ lẹ́sẹ̀ wọn á jùrù pàtà àwa jùrù pàtà kú lọ́wọ́ ayé lónìí o àmọ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ bí bá mú ọ lóhùn adọ̀run alákejì àwa ò ní fayé lẹ̀ gbọ̀run alákejì lọ lónìí o àpẹ́ láyé bí aláàfin ọ̀gbọ̀gbọ́n dìrìwó àtẹlẹ̀ yìí pẹ́ àfọwọ́pa ewu àfẹ́rẹ́gì jóbi àwọn ní pa ohùn mọ́ agogo wa lẹ́nu lágbára Ọ̀rúnmìlà lágbára orí. For those who do not understand English, we speak life to you, we speak longevity to you, we speak greatness to you, we speak profit to you, we speak financial stability to you, and we ask that the universe will endow you with the right amount of wisdom you need to live your life, and now you will not die an untimely death. Àṣẹ kò rí bẹ́ẹ̀. Thank you very much for joining us today. Ó dìgbà kan náà.